You start.
Hello and welcome to the official Facebook page and YouTube channel of Digital Ideas. Today we are joined by Mr. Suman Chakraborty and we have a very special guest on our show. That is Mr. John Helm. He is none other than the voice of international football, the man who has commentated in all the World Cups for decades, and now he has been a part of ISL for a long time. So welcome on our show, sir. Thank you so much for gracing us with your time, sir. How have you been?
My pleasure. Namaste to everybody there in India. I've been very well, thank you. I hate this 6-month period of no working. I think I've worked in one day since I left Mumbai back in March. March the 14th, I came home. And since then, I've been to 2 or 3 football matches behind closed doors, but I've had one working day where normally I'd have been at the Olympic Games, I'd have been at the Copa America. Oh, goodness me. And I've missed out. So there you go. I'm in the same boat as everybody else, so hopefully we'll get back on track before too long.
Yes,
Right.
and John, welcome to the show. I always mention that you are my mentor, my guru, but at the same time, we are blessed by another thing. Ronak and all the viewers who are watching this particular show, tomorrow is John's 65th work anniversary, so that is quite massive. So
That's a
congratulations.
Thank you. You are my star pupil, by the way. So, I think you're alluding to the fact that I'm getting quite old. But I remember my first working day, the 17th of August, 1959, as though it was yesterday. And I think, the secret for me has been the fact that every day I've woken up since August 17, 1959, I've enjoyed what I've been going to do. I've looked forward to whatever was on the menu for that particular day. I've never had a bad day. There aren't many people in life who can say that, and I love every single moment of my working life, be it in England, in India, or anywhere in the world. I'm a very, very lucky man.
John, I have a question to you. Firstly, today's show, as I mentioned, more of would be regarding the Champions League as well. But of course, we have a lot of questions in our mind. Our first question, which I want to ask John about the Champions League's perspective, is that 8-2 annihilation on the hands of Bayern Munich. What do you think about Barcelona's performance? What went wrong?
I think everything that can go wrong has gone wrong with Barcelona, not just on the pitch the other evening, but over the past 6 months. We know that there has been discord between Lionel Messi and the president of the club and other people there. We know that they've had the upheaval with their coaches. And you can tell that the old saying that what happens off the pitch doesn't affect what happens on the pitch isn't strictly true, because I think you could see in the body language of many of those Barcelona players that they really didn't want to be there, which is an incredible situation for this stage of the Champions League. But the events off the field with the president and everything that's been going on there really reflected. The goalkeeper had an absolute nightmare to Stegen. The back four with Piqué was out of form, and Bayern were just simply ripping them apart. And do you know what it did do? It reminded me of the day I commentated in Belo Horizonte on the game in which Germany inflicted a 7-1 horrendous defeat on the home nation Brazil at the World Cup there. It was a very similar feeling about it, that one side was just there for the slaughter.
Absolutely. Another question I have on my mind. Well, during this lockdown period, I've seen you playing golf. So John Helm is having a new golf career. What do you want to say about it?
Anybody who's ever seen my swing will know there's never going to be a golfing career in my game. But I'm very lucky man. I'm still able to stride the fairways, and I still pull my own trolley, by the way. I played at the Bombay Presidency Club this year. I also played at Wallington Club there. In fact, I've played in 10 Indian cities. I love my golf. So whenever I come out to India, I make sure that there's a golf club somewhere nearby. So when I get a day off, I can go and enjoy it. Usually with Russell Osman, the former England player, who's a far better player than me. He plays off 4. But my family, full of my youngest son, is working today on an event up in Scotland. He's a cameraman on the European tour. So we tend to go off and have little golfing holidays together. And we've got one coming up in Northumberland. There's some great golf courses up there. So I think it's very important, for people like us to have some pastime, something to take our mind away from the work from time to time. And golf is the way that I do that. I love getting out there in the open air and playing 18 holes of golf. There's nothing better for me. And then afterwards, there's always a good chat about where it went right and where it went wrong. And the beauty of golf is that no matter how badly you play, and believe you me, I can play very badly, there is always one good shot to look back on. And it's a bit like cricket. You might get out, but if you've hit a six just before that, you remember the six and you don't remember getting leg before wicket.
Well, as you just mentioned about cricket, my question will automatically be about MS Dhoni. You know MS Dhoni as well. You have met him once during the ISL. What do you want to say about this retirement? I mean, an end of an era. What do you say?
MS Dhoni has been an extraordinary ambassador for cricket because he plays with enterprise. That's what I've always liked about him. He's a very intelligent player, the way he attacks the bowling, the way he reads the situation of a game. And India, for me, have always produced exhilarating, exciting cricketers. You know, going back to your Kapil Devs and to your Dilip Vensakas, they've always produced people who excited the crowds. And of course, you've got two or three. Virat Kohli at the moment is another fine example. And I think that MS Dhoni, and of course, he has an interest in ISL as well. Sachin Tendulkar being another one who had done for a long time with the Kerala Blasters. They typify the Indian approach to cricket for me. Ganguly, there have been so many players who I've thrilled at their expertise, the way they can handle a situation of a match and work it. In England, as you know, at the moment, we've got people like Ben Stokes, who is equally adept at doing that, handling a match situation as well as the individual performance. And MS Dhoni has been a terrific ambassador.
Sean, coming back to Indian football, of course, I can recall back in 2015 in Mumbai, we were discussing about East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, can they join Indian football ISL to be precise? Because these two are the footballing super giants of Indian football, and now Mohun Bagan are very much into it. East Bengal is yet to join the ISL. What do you think about this inclusion and East Bengal's chances of joining? In fact, if they join, how big will it be for the ISL?
I think it's very big, and I think it's a very good step, and I think it's a very important step that's been made from the early beginnings of ISL, which is about to embark on its 7th year. There have been the big names in there, of course, but everybody back at home here have often said about Indian football, and I quoted Mohun Bagan and East Bengal to them. I said, do you believe that at the Salt Lake Stadium they can attract 120,000 people for a derby match? And people in England, what? And I go, absolutely. You think we get a big crowd at Old Trafford, 70,000? You should go to Salt Lake and see Mohun Bagan and East Bengal. And I will never forget a day where I went to all three grounds in Calcutta there, or Kolkata, I should say nowadays, of course, East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, and the Mohammedan Sporting Ground as well. And, you know, the passion there is absolutely colossal. But it is a giant stride for ISL as well, because it increases the interest, because there is so much history connected with Mohun Bagan. And I believe the team is going to play in the green and the claret as well, which I think is important. And ATK, of course, have got the record number of wins in ISL history. They've got a good manager. They're going to have some good signings. And I just think it's a huge step forward. And, you know, something similar might occur in Goa one day with somebody like Churchill Brothers coming in. I don't know. It has been talked about, I think. But spreading the gospel, spreading the game in India has to be good. It really has to be a big step forward.
Ronak.
Right. So before we move on to the next question, I would like to request our viewers to kindly send their questions on YouTube, because we will be giving preference to the questions sent on YouTube. So, Mr. Helm, growing up idolizing Stanley Matthews, one of the greatest English footballers of all time. So, was it always your ambition to be associated with the beautiful game of football, or you had the same inclination towards all the other sports?
I hope you've got a few listeners who are my age, otherwise the young ones have never heard of Stanley Matthews. But
Right.
funnily enough, he was known as the Wizard of the Dribble, and he played for Blackpool and Stoke City in England back in the 50s. And one of my first footballing memories was of the 1953 FA Cup final between Blackpool and Bolton, where Blackpool, with 15 minutes to go, were trailing 3-1, and Matthews set up 3 goals to win the match and was chaired off the pitch. And to this day, I am still known in my local village of Baildon as Stan, because I used to dribble a tennis ball to school and people used to call me Stan, and still do. So my early ambitions were to be a cricketer, funnily enough, rather than to be a footballer. I've worn these spectacles of mine since the age of 8, not the same pair, but since the age of 8, I've worn glasses. Now, I can't quote to you too many centre forwards who play for England in glasses. So I never thought I was going to make it as a footballer. But as a cricketer, I did have trials for Yorkshire, and I always loved sport of any sort. But to answer the question in full, some of my early idols were broadcasters. So it's not surprising that I've gone on to have a career in journalism and in broadcasting. You know, I used to revere people like John Arlott, who was a magnificent radio broadcaster, in particular in this country. And then football commentators like Brian Moore and Kenneth Wolstenholme, going back even further, I admired. But I think we all have to aspire to be somebody. Anybody who's into sport is bound to have heroes, whether it's Lionel Messi today or Virat Kohli or the top tennis player or the top golfer in the world, Lahiri in India. Then I think we all seek to aspire to be as good as somebody else, and that's only right.
John, I have a question for you. How do you see the match between Manchester City and Lyon last night?
Not very well. I'll be honest with you, I didn't see the game, but I've read every single report about it today. And I've just been contributing, funnily enough, to a few WhatsApp conversations about it. The general opinion seems to be that, amazingly, Pep Guardiola got it all wrong. He got the selection of his team wrong. He got the tactics wrong, far too defensive. He allowed Lyon to dictate to him. He was more worried about their lineup than he was about his own lineup. How on earth you can leave players of the quality of David Silva out of a starting lineup, I will never know. For me, he's one of my favourite players of recent times. But there does seem to be something strange about the Champions League and Manchester City. They just don't seem to get over that. Well, it's not even final hurdle. It's even getting beyond the semi-final hurdle. And so they didn't deserve to win, even though they had more of the game. Raheem Sterling's miss a couple of minutes from the end summed it up probably. And it's back to square one again next year. So just because you've got all that amount of money doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful. But who would have predicted at the start of the campaign that 2 French teams, despite France winning the last World Cup, 2 French teams would be in the semi-finals playing 2 German teams?
Yes, the point, the question is definitely there. We often call the French league as the Farmers League. And then 2 teams from that league is playing a Champions League final, semi-final. What do you think about it?
Well, it's amazing that Lyon, from 7th place, can be within 1 step of being in the Champions League final. Personally, I disagree with it. This might sound very old-fashioned, but I prefer the days where the European Cup meant the top team in every nation competing in it, and not teams who have finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or even 7th, as is the case now. That, to me, is not a Champions League. But on the other hand, I do see the financial side of things, and clubs like Manchester United can get in, and Real Madrid might get in, even though they've finished 2nd to Barcelona. Not this time, of course. AC Milan, Inter Milan. But I still think it's astonishing that 2 teams from France are right up there, because the French league is probably only about the 5th best league in the world. You know, you have to say the English Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, and probably Serie A are all ahead of the French league. So 5th at best. So it is an astonishing statistic that Lyon, and good luck to them, have made it all the way. Well, almost all the way. 1 to go.
Well, John, there are so many questions which are waiting on the comment box. I'd be requesting Ronak to pick a few out.
Of course, we would be taking the questions from YouTube, as I mentioned. So we would take the first question from our viewers on YouTube. Avik Roy is asking, who is a bigger footballing icon from Scotland, Sir Alex Ferguson or Sir Kenny Dalglish, and why?
That's a very, very good question. I tell you what, if I was in the company of Sir Alex Ferguson, I wouldn't dare say Kenny Dalglish. Alex used to give me a hard time, but nowadays I get on very well with him. And Suman, you like this. Do you know why I get on so well with Alex Ferguson? Because I beat him at golf. He was once leading the way to win a golf tournament for a shot, and I picked him. And when I found out he was in the lead, and I got hold of the piece of the stick that was in the turf, and it said Sir Alex Ferguson, and I knew I'd won. Oh, I had to go and accept the prize. And to show you what sort of a gentleman he is, he came up to me. He said, "I saw the way you played." He said, "It was a great shot. Anything you want from me in the future, you've only got to ask." And he was good enough to get me a signed shirt from Ruud van Nistelrooy for my football club, Bradford Park Avenue. So I'm going to say Ferguson. There was no question that Dalglish was the better footballer. Ferguson had a pretty modest career, even by his own admission. But as a Scot, and that was the question, who is the bigger footballing icon? I have to go for a man who led Manchester United to so many titles and so many cups. I mean, he is the best football manager of all time, without question in my mind. So, sorry, Kenny, Sir Kenny, it goes to Sir Alex.
John, I have a question.
So Sir Kenny is the answer.
Yes. So, John, I think you have seen this particular Premier League season. And what do you think about the transformation of Manchester United since the pandemic period began? I mean, when the moment the lockdown period got over, football came back to England, Premier League resumed. How do you see about Manchester United's performance?
Remarkable, be honest with you. And one man has made the difference, and the Portuguese midfield player. He has made a colossal difference to Manchester United. He's made other players like Anthony Martial, for example. His form's improved. And the emergence of Mason Greenwood, who, by the way, is a neighbour of mine, not far away in Bradford, that's where he comes from, has been transformational in the way they've played. They've been better defensively as well. And isn't it strange that they allowed Chris Smalling and Ashley Young to move into Italian football, but somehow Lindelof in there, and they've had injuries, of course, to people like Jones and many others. The football that they've played has been exhilarating, and of course somehow they've managed to harness the talent of Paul Pogba into that side, which they weren't doing before. Pogba didn't want to know in the early stages of the season. I'm sorry to say that. I don't think he really did. But now that he's in a winning team, and they've lost only once in, 24 matches or something, the transformation has been absolutely remarkable. And let's give credit to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because we've always said he's a nice bloke, but a lot of people have said, I'm not sure about his management skills. He has started off brilliantly, of course, last year. And then as soon as he lost a few matches, people were saying, told you so. He didn't do any good at Cardiff. He won't do any good at Manchester. But he's proved a lot of the doubters wrong. And he's not just a nice guy. He is a good manager as well. And he's proving that. I think there'll be an upheaval during the summer. I can see the likes of Juan Mata leaving. I can see one or two others ending their Manchester United careers. Maybe even the likes of Daniel James, who hasn't featured lately. But they should go from strength to strength. Whether they'll get to sign Sancho, I doubt it somehow. But they will make a couple of other big signings. No question about it.
So you have a doubt that Jadon Sancho might not join Manchester United?
Sorry?
So you've just mentioned that Jadon Sancho might not join Manchester United.
Yes, I did mention that. I've read quite a lot of articles, one lengthy one today, which is about, it's up to Sancho himself. If he wants to join Manchester United, he'll make it perfectly clear to those at Dortmund that he wants to go, as well as having inside knowledge about Old Trafford, of course, obviously. But I read one interesting, very small article during the week in which he said that he was absolutely thrilled to be emerging at Dortmund with a lot of younger players that he enjoyed playing with, and how he's not going to push for a move. He really seems to enjoy life there in Germany. He's still a very young man, of course. He featured in the Under-17 World Cup in India in 2017, as you know, where I was commentating, and was delighted to see that wonderful team which actually won the tournament. So I think Sancho, give him another year and it might be different. But I have a feeling, I have a hunch he'll stay until the end of his contract in Germany.
Ronak.
Right. So since we are talking about the Premier League, one question pops up in my mind. That is, Mr. Helm, while you were in your initial stages of your career, you were working with the BBC radio covering the Leeds United, right? So, what does it mean for Leeds United to be getting the opportunity to be back in the top flight of English football, that is the Premier League? And if you could share some of your experiences from back in the time of covering Leeds United.
Yeah, delighted to do so. Please call me John, by the way. This Mr. Helm almost unnerves me. I'm a very friendly guy, Suman, aren't I? I had the privilege, and I always say that one of the biggest influences on my career has been Leeds United, because I was fortunate to be aligned with them in the 70s when I started work for BBC, you're quite right, at Radio Leeds. Leeds United were then one of the top teams in Europe, if not the world. And that is typified by the fact that nearly everybody can name that team. Sprake, Reenie Cooper, Bremner, Charlton Hunter, Laurie McClark, Jones, Giles, Gray, with Paul Madeley in there as well, who was a very undersung hero. So my memories of covering them were of almost triumph, in the sense that they never looked like getting beaten by anybody. I remember covering 2 or 3 seasons where you turned up at their games, a bit like Liverpool last season, knowing that they were going to win. You really did know that they were going to win, and if they didn't, it would be a surprise, and they were certainly very unlikely to get beaten. So, and I got very close to the players, and for me, it's been a tragic year because, of course, we've lost Jack Charlton, England World Cup hero from 1966, Norman Hunter, who was in that same squad and who was his defensive partner for so many years at Elland Road, and also Trevor Cherry, who sort of took over in that team in the defence just after them. And all 3 have died in the last 2 months, which has been tragic. As to how they'll do, they've got a brilliant manager in Marcelo Bielsa. It went wrong for him a little bit when he was in France, but he's proven. And if Pep Guardiola says he's the best in the world, then who am I to argue? They played an exhilarating brand of football, possession football, throughout the course of this last championship season. They were easily the best team. I was pleased actually after lockdown that they cemented their position, because they were top with 9 games to go when the football ceased to be played. And when they came back, they proved themselves better than either Fulham or West Bromwich Albion or anybody else, although they lost their first match after lockdown to Cardiff City. But very strangely, Cardiff are their bogey team. They never, ever beat Cardiff City. It's a strange thing about football, isn't it? It's a bit like Manchester City can't get over this hurdle in the Champions League. Leeds never beat Cardiff. So they'll be relieved that Cardiff didn't go up from the playoffs as well. What is interesting is that they look to be signing another crop of 18, 19 and 20-year-olds rather than going for any superstar players. Whether that's down to finances, I'm not sure. But they will be very well organised. They will have a lot of the ball, no matter who they play next year. Even Liverpool, they'll have plenty of the ball against them. So their ambitions are obvious. They would need to stay in the Premier League for 1 year, maybe 2 years, and in that time grow and grow with the staff and get 1 or 2 more big players in. But they should be okay. They need another striker to play alongside Patrick Bamford. But I think it's good for the game in general in England that Leeds United against Manchester United, Leeds United against Liverpool, Leeds against Arsenal is back on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Yes, Ronak. I mean, I often say that every year, on every birthday, John becomes younger. But one more thing I want to add to it: John's memory becomes sharper. I mean, he's an encyclopedia. I told you in the morning as well. John, I'd like to do one more thing. I mean, I'm sure the fans would be keen to looking forward to it as well. The first match which you commentated in your footballing career and the memories of that.
Well, the first match I commentated on television was between Rotherham United and Norwich City. Is that the game you're thinking about, Suman? I had done commentaries on radio before then, but my first television commentary was an English championship game between Rotherham and Norwich. And Norwich scored after 4 minutes, a guy called Greg Shepherd. And I was commentating live on the game. And then I looked at the pitch. I had a monitor, and was talking about the replay, and then all of a sudden I spotted that Rotherham had got a corner, and I put down the lazy talkback kick, which we all know in our business what that does. Said to the director, "Rotherham have got a corner," and he said, "Keep talking. Your job's to talk over the replay." So I talked over the replay, by which time Rotherham had equalised, and we never saw the goal. A chap called Ronnie Moore scored it, and the viewers for years pestered me to say I was the man who missed the goal, forgetting the fact that I'm not the director. I don't cut up the pictures. And so Rotherham equalised, and everybody still thought it was Norwich leading 1-0. As it happened, Rotherham went on to win 4-1, so it didn't matter too much. But I still get stick over that one. It's amazing, isn't it? So that was my debut.
You got some sort of a glimpse, I'm sure. The memories of John Helm.
The amazing thing, Suman, is that I can remember just about every match I've ever done. I can remember the first match I ever saw, which was Bradford City versus York City back in 1953. I can remember the first game I ever covered as a reporter was a local team here in Yorkshire called Salt, and I can remember the names of that team: Dixon, Murray, Ormond, Royd, John Holdsworth, Stables, Thayer, Sid Holdsworth, Dean, Glover, Regan, Hardy. There you go. Now, why can I do that? It's just photogenic, I suppose. Very, very lucky to have that sort of a memory. Don't ask me what the wife has told me to get in for tea. I wouldn't have a clue. Really, the memories defining the way you are as a person. I think you remember the things you want to remember and can very quickly forget the things that you don't want to remember.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the point you just made about your debut game, we often face it, isn't it? I mean, the directors, they focus on the game, they focus on the basics of the game, but more importantly, they should remember that the most important part of a football match is the goal. And if you miss it, that's a crime.
Oh, absolutely right. And the other thing that you're horrified by as a commentator is if you get the name of a goal scorer wrong. Luckily, I think it's only happened to me 3 or 4 times. And the older and the wiser you get, if you're not sure, you hold off and hope that the cameraman has got the right man. Sometimes that can throw you into confusion where you've seen a goal and you're convinced that one player has scored it. And then the camera goes to somebody else running away to celebrate, and it puts that seed of doubt in your mind. But I always say that very much like the football team on the pitch, we're a team as well. So we are reliant on the cameras, the sound people, the directors, the producers, everybody, But the one thing I'd like to add at this minute is the fact I've been to 3 games behind closed doors in England, and I have to say I've hated every minute of it. And I thought I'd never, ever say that about watching football. It's a bit strong to say hated, but the lack of atmosphere when it's behind closed doors, it's almost a surreal experience. It's unreal, Football thrives on crowds, on atmosphere. And when you haven't got the atmosphere of the crowd, I'm afraid it does dilute the overall enjoyment of the occasion. Elite performers need to perform to a crowd, without question.
Absolutely, Ron.
Yeah, we will move on to the next question, right? Subhan Chaudhary is asking, the pressing from Bayern and Barca's defensive third was enormous, especially on Semedo and Jordi Alba. So how did they manage to play that demanding game right from the start of the game to the last minute?
Well, that's a very good question. And the coach, Flick, takes enormous credit for this. He'd identified, I think, that Alba, in particular, maybe Semedo, could be vulnerable. And they, right from the word go, Thomas Muller was pressing in on the goalkeeper, putting colossal pressure onto Stegen. Now, this is not just a fluke. They knew exactly what they were doing there. And German teams, perhaps more than any other, are capable of this sort of press, which is why earlier in this interview I referred to the 7-1 mauling of Brazil in the World Cup of 2014. The German teams, when they press, are brilliant. And people like Kimmich, very good player. I mean, he plays ostensibly as a right back, right side midfielder, whatever. Lewandowski is probably the world footballer of the year this year, having scored 50-odd goals in the Bundesliga. So they had the right sort of players, and they played in their right positions. This was a thing where Manchester City got it wrong, I felt, last night, that there looked to be a few square pegs in round holes, whereas with Bayern Munich, everybody knew their job. They'd worked out a strategy. They put Barcelona under so much pressure, and Barcelona simply wilted and couldn't withstand it and didn't have the appetite. That was the other point. I'm not taking anything away from Bayern here, because they were absolutely magnificent and have marked themselves down as being 100% favourites, I think, to go on and win the trophy now, probably against PSG in what should be a very good final. It might not work out that way, but you've got to give enormous credit to Bayern for humiliating Barcelona in the manner they did.
Absolutely. We'll move on to the next question from our viewers. Rohitan Mondal is asking, according to you, sir, who will win this year's UCL? Any prediction? Do you want a new champion? Best team or best player so far in this season, according to you in UCL, sir? I'm a big fan of yours. His name is written in Bengali. His name is Rohitan Mondal.
Well, I hope you're still a fan when I give the answer to the question. Based on what we saw in those last games, Bayern Munich have to be the favourites. Yes, Paris Saint-Germain have Neymar. Yes, they have Kylian Mbappe. But you have to say that as a team, and based on that performance the other evening against Barcelona, Bayern Munich would deserve to be the champions. Now, of course, they have been the champions in previous years as well. And I've just mentioned Lewandowski. If you look at the goal-scoring record of the Polish centre-forward, it's been extraordinary this year. And goal scorers are heroes. There's no question about that. But what I would say about Lewandowski was I did a couple of Poland games in the World Cup in Russia, 2 years ago now, and he was poor. He was almost anonymous. And yet, at club level, he has been absolutely fantastic. I mentioned Kimmich as well, because I really like him as a player. So that might be a bit boring for you, but I have to go for Bayern Munich, and I have to go for Lewandowski as the top team, or the likeliest winners of the tournament, and the outstanding individual player. Having said that, he'll probably go and have a stinker in the final, and they'll go and get beaten by Leipzig or something crazy. I think not, though.
Yes, Sean. I have a question, of course. I mean, your most fond World Cup memory of the field?
Right, World Cup memory off the field. That's a very good question. If I could just give it, my mind is ticking over, as you can see. As you said very kindly at the beginning, I've been to 10 World Cups. So starting with Argentina in 1978. There, my memories are mostly of horrendous traffic jams, so it wouldn't be from that. 1982 in Spain, I had a terrific time. I really loved Spain in 1982, where I covered all the Brazil games, and being outside the stadium with the Brazilian supporters so colourful. But I'll tell you a memory here that will make you tickle you. I think this will make you laugh. Germany was a very good World Cup in 2006, and I covered no fewer than 26 matches, travelling either by train or by coach. But there was one game that posed a massive problem for me, and it was played in Kaiserslautern, and it was Australia versus Japan. And I was travelling on train from Stuttgart, and I had a ticket booked, and I went on the platform, and I stood where exactly, because there were signs there, where to get on at the train. I couldn't get on the train because of inflatable kangaroos. Can you believe that? Hundreds of these Australian supporters dressed as inflatable kangaroos blocked the entire way into the train, and I couldn't get on it. I just couldn't get on because of all these mad Australians, and had to wait for another one about 20 minutes later. So although it's a very strange memory, it's a true one. And the Aussies went on to win the game 3-1 as well. So that's a very unusual memory from a World Cup, but a very true one. And funnily enough, in Russia, my favourite day, I was in Samara, and we had a boat trip onto an island that day, myself and all the television crew. I mentioned before that everybody in the crew is important, no matter what jobs they do. And there's some great fellas and some great girls as well. And we had a marvellous party on an island where everybody was able to let their hair down. And that sums up the World Cup in many ways, where it is about the football, of course it is, but it's about everybody getting to know one another from different countries. You know, there were Brazilians there were Germans there were Russians there were Swedes there, and there were English there. Everybody getting along famously. And I think that typifies how a World Cup should be.
Of course, it's a celebration.
At the moment, I think I have a question for both of you that we all know how difficult it is to work on live sport. Like, there's no room for error. Like, I haven't worked, but you both have, and you guys know much better and have the experience of sharing that, how difficult it becomes or how difficult it is, to be precise. So, if I were to ask that, what is the most difficult moment for a situation for a commentator during a live match? What would it be? We'll start with John and then come to Suman.
Okay.
Well, when John Helm is there, I should not say anything about it.
The most difficult thing during a live match will be, well, there are 2 or 3 things. One would be that your microphone doesn't work. So it's a technical problem. And if you haven't got a technician with you, that is a nightmare. And it happened to me last year in Korea, where my Korean isn't very good, apart from saying kamsamida. That means, thank you very much, it means everything in Korean. And my microphone was cut out, and I'm still talking, but I know it's cut out because I can't hear my own voice in my headphones. There's nobody to talk to, and panic does set in. You think I'm supposed to be going out live here, describing this game between Korea and Japan, and nothing's happening, and nobody's listening, and voices in my head are saying, "What's happened to John? Where are you, John? I'm here, and I'm talking." So that is one situation. Another one, which was horrendous for me personally, was a game in Marseille where I suddenly developed food poisoning. And it's happened to me once in India as well, in the middle of a match, and I've been physically sick. Now, that is pretty horrible as well. We won't go too far into that, but if you are personally taken ill during a commentary, that is the second one. And the third one can be when somebody scores a goal and you haven't a clue who it is. Either because you haven't been given a team sheet, which has happened to me. I once commentated on a whole 90 minutes without knowing the name of a single player because I've not been given a team sheet. And the match was a charity game for the Lev Yashin testimonial of Russia, and I was in London. So I did a 90-minute commentary with no names. Now, that is hard, believe you and me. So those are the worst possible situations you can come across. Suman, I'm sure you've had a few as well.
Right. We'll move on to Suman. Please share your experiences as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the last one which you just mentioned, I faced it in the last 4 years every time when I commentated in the Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, John. I mean, I found players, I don't know their names because they're unknown, to be very frank. And it's all of a sudden, there is no name on the back as well. They're playing, they're scoring, and it's a horrible experience, John, to be very precise. But at the same time, it's fun. It gives you new experiences as well, that you have to be ready in each and every situation. And that's the new challenges of a broadcaster. And as you often say, bro, John, that we are blessed that we have this wonderful auditorium. We are here to entertain each and everyone. And we have the biggest gift of the Almighty, that is a voice. And I firmly believe that, John, I think you can narrate it better. But at the same time, I firmly believe that we are blessed that we can walk on this beautiful auditorium.
Absolutely. Rudak, I've just come up with another thought. I once did live commentary on the Open Golf Championship on radio for BBC, and I was on the 7th tee at fairway, on the 7th fairway, I apologise, and I'm doing the whispering bit. So they handed over to me, and I'm whispering, when all of a sudden, of all people, and I'm sure you've heard of him, a golfer called Jack Nicklaus is striding towards me, looking very angry indeed. And I'm live on air. And I said, at this moment, Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear, is coming to speak to me. And I'm terrified what he's going to say. And he said, "Are you the RNA?" I said, no, I'm the see? And he needed a ruling because his ball had landed on a sprinkler head. But at that moment, I was absolutely terrified.
Well, John, that brings next question. That is, how do you think that the role of commentating on live sports has evolved since the time you started?
How much has it changed?
How much has it changed since the time you started till now? Now, too, we don't have anything. We have closed door matches happening. So, how has it changed?
It's changed dramatically. It really has. And part of the things that has changed is social media. So a commentator now, I mean, I just used to literally turn up and commentate on what I saw in front of me in the match and listen to a director or a producer in my ears. Now you have to be aware of all the text messages that are coming in. You might have Twitter messages to impart. There can be so many things. And just in general, you have to be so much more aware. And because of what's happened in the last couple of years, we have to be far more careful about our choice of words. We really do. We all know at the moment about the Black Lives Matter movement. And there are certain things which people of my age, you used to accept were just said in because they were normal phrases, and they're no longer seen as that. And you have to be far more aware these days of your choice of vocabulary, which is not a bad thing, but it really has affected commentary, I would say, in the way we go about it tremendously. What is an advantage, however, there is so much information out there because of the internet, which wasn't there when I started. I used to talk to the manager the day before the game and he would give me the team. Now you never even get anywhere near the manager. You never get anywhere near a player. I have to say, happily, that's not the case in India, because if I'm at an ISL game, I do get to talk to the players before the game. They're very good. That would never happen with the Premier League or with Champions League. You never get to speak to anybody apart from at a press conference where there is the manager, a coach, and one player, and that is it. But the internet is a source of amazing information. Even, say, a women's under-17 World Cup, you will find something about the Costa Rican players. That couldn't have happened 20 years ago. So, but, it's a changing world, isn't it? And we're just lucky to be part of it.
I think we will
There are
move
so
on to
many
the next.
questions.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on to the next question from our viewers. Let's see who is there. Somalia Ghosh is asking, what are your thoughts about Barca's horrendous performance against Bayern? I think we have an answer about the same. But
I
still,
think
if
he
you
has
would.
answered. Yes.
Yeah.
The next question we'd like to take.
Yeah. Arghya Bhattacharya is asking, do you have any fond memories of the 66-67 European Cup final in Lisbon?
No, not in particular on that one, but 1966, of course, was far better remembered in this country for the World Cup. Matches involving Glasgow Celtic, European Cup in Lisbon, the amazing Glasgow, the Lions, as they were called. My chief memory of that would be Billy McNeil, who was the centre half for Glasgow Celtic, who turned out to be one of my co-commentators at future World Cups, particularly in Spain in '82. And what a genuine, lovely man he was. We sadly lost Billy not so long ago. But the Lisbon Lions were one of the most famous, and are still one of the most famous teams of all time in Europe, and certainly in Scotland. But 66, of course, as an Englishman, was far more memorable for a certain result against Germany at Wembley. And I do have some fantastic memories of European matches. Even, can you believe, the Real Madrid 7, Eintracht Frankfurt 3 game in Glasgow, which is generally regarded as one of the greatest games of football that have ever been played. And although that match was played in 1957 or something like that, I have actually commentated on the game. Subsequently, I would have been 15 at the time, but I got the opportunity to commentate on the match 7 or 8 years ago in black and white. And what astonished me was the slow pace of the game compared to now. Wonderful players like Ferenc Puskás and Sandor Hidegkuti, Josip Boksic, some absolutely fantastic players there. Hento, the left wing of Real Madrid, Di Stefano, absolutely brilliant. But the pace of the game, and of course goalkeepers picking up the back passes and things like that, it just looked very alien to what we're used to now.
So many memories.
We're on the next question. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question.
Man, by the way, you definitely don't remember 1966.
I was not even born.
No.
My father was not back in the time.
I was 24.
Right. We'll take the next
I have a
question.
question. I'll ask you, John, a particular question. Ronak, before going into the next question of the viewers, I have a question, John. You have started your career as a journalist. We all know that. And then you became one of the finest commentators of all time in the history of world sports. Which was what more challenging, being a journalist or a commentator?
Definitely being a commentator. Being a journalist requires obviously accuracy, obviously putting a story across. But I was very grateful for the fact I worked for 7 years in newspapers. Well, in fact, 7 years on a weekly paper and 4 years on daily papers before I ventured into the world of broadcasting with the BBC. But as a journalist, you've all the time in the world to get things right. You can do an article, and then suddenly towards the end of the article, you think, I forgot such and such, and change a word, or it eventually appears in print. And you would hope that most of the time by then you've got it absolutely right. Even now, I still report on football matches, and it's far easier to write up the game than it is in broadcasting. In broadcasting, you have a split second in which to make your choice of words. Be it radio or television. In radio, you are painting a picture, and you need to talk not incessantly, but you need to talk plenty, and you need to put across the atmosphere of the occasion, as well as being accurate in your descriptions. In television, you obviously do not want to talk as much, and you have to let the pictures tell the story, but you have to add something sensible to it. And you used the word, Suman, a bit ago, entertainment. We are there to entertain as well as to educate and as well as to portray the occasion. So I would say that, seriously, broadcasting is far more difficult than written journalism. Two different arts. And not many people master all of them. Some people do. Some people never can. Some people are very good with the written word, but put them on a microphone and they're hopeless, to be honest. They just can't do it. They can't put that atmosphere across. Other people have that ability, but are not very good at stringing words together in an article. So it takes your pick, but definitely for me, broadcasting is the harder art to perform.
Ronak, the next question from the fans.
We'll move on to the next question from the fans, please. Amit Kumar sir is asking, this year's UCL results is because not only big names but small teams with talented players can make their mark. Sir, your opinion, please.
This makes the world go round. That is my opinion, because I hate to see the same teams dominating all the time. In the early years of the Champions League, when it was the European Cup, Real Madrid won it 5 times in a row, as we know. They were absolutely magnificent, and they've been magnificent for many years since then. But every now and again, a new team occurs, like Ajax suddenly cropped up in the early 1970s. Benfica had a period of supremacy as well. I have a feeling that somebody like Paris Saint-Germain, because they've got such financial clout, may be a dominant force in the next 2 or 3 years. Manchester City should be. But I think it's been brilliant over the years that every now and again you might get a Schalke or a Valencia or somebody coming out of the pack that nobody really expects. And I think for me, that goes to every level of the game. And for example, Brentford almost made it into the English Premier League this year. And a team near where I live called Harrogate Town, who about 3 years ago were playing 2 divisions below the Football League, have got into the Football League this time by beating the oldest football club of all time, Notts County, in the playoff at Wembley. So it gives hope to absolutely everybody. And I think that's the most wonderful thing about it. Wycombe Wanderers have been promoted to the Championship for the first time in their history. And this is synonymous with what's happening in this UCL season. So I think it's absolutely terrific. And I have a bit of a sympathy for the soft spot for the underdog all the time. Suman.
Yes, next question.
Chaudhary is asking, even to beat Copenhagen last day, Man United needed a penalty at extra time. Being a Man United fan, just wanted to ask you if you think they are prepared for the next year's UCL or not.
This question's for me, is it, rather than for Suman?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I think they can be, certainly. The improvement they've shown, nobody prospered more from the lockdown in this country than Manchester United, because before it, they were humdrum maybe, or no better than, say, Tottenham Hotspur or Leicester City. But what they've achieved over the 24 games since then has been remarkable. So they haven't played their best against Copenhagen or against 2 and 3 of the more recent matches. But there are genuine signs, I think, that Manchester United are on the right track, and they will sign a couple of good players during the summer. I alluded to the fact that I think I can see them, making 3 or 4 significant changes during the course of this very short break we've got before the start of next season. So Manchester United are a team that you assume will get into the Champions League. Maybe not for the last couple of years, but they're definitely moving along the right tracks. You would have to say that Liverpool again, Manchester City again, should be there. Chelsea may have flattered to deceive a little bit. Arsenal, you're never quite sure about. So Manchester United, for me, would be a top 4 team at least next season.
John, look at this tickling smile.
Yeah, Sumanta, being a United fan, do you have any opinions to share on the same question?
John knows it, and that is the reason why the moment the question appeared, John said, "Is it for me or Suman?" Okay, next question.
Right. Next question, please.
Next question.
Yeah, Amartya Chatterjee is asking, sir, what's your take on people not giving importance to League One or Bundesliga or calling them Farmers League? But in reality, all the semi-finalists are from these 2 leagues in this year's UCL.
Yeah, well, for many years I've said that we're a little too arrogant in our country, and people I'm sure know that I live in England, and people the world over, because we travel to the Far East, Malaysia, Thailand, wherever we go, everybody talks about the English Premier League. But I felt that we've been a little arrogant in the way that we have believed that, and I haven't. I'm one of those people who hasn't believed that. People always argue about the fact that in Spain it's only Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's not. Atletico Madrid, Valencia, Seville are good teams. In France, you always related to Marseille and Lyon. Now you have Paris Saint-Germain, who were a dominant force as well, of course. And in Germany, it's not just Bayern Munich. You have Borussia Dortmund. You have 3 or 4 Leipzig now as well. Whereas in the English league, it's got narrowed down. Yeah. If it's not Liverpool, it's Manchester City. If it's not Liverpool or Manchester City, it might be Chelsea. It was Manchester United a bit ago, but there are only very few clubs in the English Premier League can win the Premier League. So I think it's disrespectful to any other league to call them Farmers League, especially the Bundesliga, because German football, the standard is very, very high, and they are attracting. What's interesting to me, a lot of young English players are going to go and play over there. There is another one about to join Schalke from Manchester United. He's moving on. Chong is his name. So they do give an opportunity to young players in the Bundesliga. So Portugal is a strong league as well. So I hate to think that we are so arrogant to believe that the English Premier League is the be-all and end-all. It's not. What I do think we've got in England, however, is a strength in depth, whereby the Championship has some terrific teams in it. You've seen Leeds and West Brom and Fulham get promotion, and 3 or 4 other teams in that division are equally good. And can beat anybody on their day. So the Championship in England is very, very strong. We probably have the strongest second division, if you want to call it that, of any country in the world.
Right.
John, I have a question. I mean, what's your take on Phil Foden? We all know how big a player he was for England in the Under-17 World Cup. He plays for Manchester City, but ever since he joined there in the senior team, we haven't seen that same Phil Foden like what we saw in the 2017 Under-17 World Cup. Is this because players should need to understand we need to have more playing times when we are raw?
Yes, I mean, Guardiola has handled Foden very interestingly. He's certainly had more game time in the last 3 months since lockdown than he's ever had before. I think it's hard to compare it with the Under-17 World Cup. He was the star. in a very good team, with Sancho, with Brewster, and with many, many good players in that England side who have gone on to play pretty well for their senior teams. They really have. But Foden was outstanding. He had a brilliant time. Now, Guardiola has kept stressing that he wants to keep Phil Foden. He doesn't want him to go out on loan anywhere else. And he has given him quite a lot of game time. And he scored quite a few goals, to be fair, since March, since we came back here in this country. So I think he is indicative of a young player who needs game time. There are 2 or 3 others who you could point to as well. Brewster is another one who's had to go to Swansea City, but he's done really well there. He's scored a few goals. He may go back to Liverpool and prove his worth with them. But yeah, any young player does need game time, but they do have to be handled properly. But I do despair sometimes that they don't get as much time on the pitch as they should do. Hudson-Odoi is another classic example, but there have been reasons there. He's had injury, he's had 1 or 2 other problems as well. But Hudson-Odoi is another very good example of a young man who needs to play more in the Premier League.
Right.
Last 3 questions, Ronak, you can take.
Last 3 questions. Avik Roy, why hasn't an English manager even won the Premier League, and how soon can Frank Lampard break the curse?
Well, there probably haven't been too many English managers around, and if there have been, there have been people like Eddie Howe with Bournemouth, and nobody ever would have predicted that Bournemouth were going to win the Premier League. So the big clubs, the Arsenals, the Manchester Uniteds, the Manchester Cities, haven't been managed by Englishmen. I'm trying to think of a top club that has been, to be honest with you. Even Tottenham Hotspur, of course, had their best best time under the man who might be the next Barcelona manager, from what we hear today, Pochettino. So it's no coincidence, really. I think at one stage there were only 4 English managers in the Premier League, one of whom is Sean Dyche at Burnley, who's brilliant, been brilliant, and one has been Howe at Bournemouth, that's 2. Now you've got Chris Wilder at Sheffield United, who has had a fantastic season. He really has. But could you imagine Sheffield United winning the Premier League? No, not really. And so, that is why. As for Frank Lampard, I think he's a very determined and a very talented young manager. He's made 2 good signings already, you would think, for next season. He's also had the young American striker Pulisic coming in and doing brilliantly over the last few weeks. But I don't see Chelsea as winners of the Premier League, not yet anyway. He's got good young players like Mason Mount as well, Hudson-Odoi, who I've just been talking about. But can they win the Premier League? Not sure. But I wouldn't put it down to Frank Lampard. I'd just put it down to the fact that other clubs have got a bit more clout and better foreign players as well.
John, how do you see Wayne Rooney as a future football manager?
Wayne Rooney?
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one because I don't know whether he probably has got the aspiration to do that. I would imagine that he would be very similar to 2 or 3 other ex-footballers who sort of lead by example, but have they quite got the nous to deal with the job? And I'm not being detrimental to him in that. The job of a football manager has changed so much in recent times because they have to deal with the media, they have to deal with the board, they have to deal with players' agents all the time. It's not just a question of the footballing side. And for me, Wayne Rooney is a little bit like, I don't know, David Beckham or 2 or 3 others who were very much into the footballing side of things, but never really had to think about the philosophies and all the things that surrounded them, all the peripheral things, which a football manager is dedicated to today. It has to be, because those are the demands. The demands are absolutely colossal. I think one who is going to become a very good manager is Arteta at Arsenal. I think the signs are extremely encouraging for Arsenal, for Mikel Arteta, but he's not English, of course. But although he speaks fantastic English and conducts himself admirably as well, so I can see a lot of progression at Arsenal next season. But as for Lampard, he's made a very good start. Put it at that, leave it at that. And as for Rooney, I think they're looking way into the future there. I wouldn't see him as a Manchester United manager either. Even though he would have to start at a much lower level if he got the opportunity. And wanted this opportunity.
Right. Last question.
Yeah. Remus Lupin is asking, Leipzig's rise is remarkably inspiring. Other smaller clubs might follow that template. Do you think data analysis and strong artificial intelligence could somewhat make natural talent redundant?
Okay, well, got a couple of questions there. The first one, of course, is that Leipzig's rise is also coupled with their unpopularity in Germany, which is a very unfortunate thing to hark about. It's like Bayern Munich are not popular there because they always win things, which is a typical reaction, of course, to any club that is too successful for everybody else. But Leipzig, as we know, are run by Red Bull, just as they have the same with Salzburg in Austria. And there's a little bit of jealousy, animosity towards Leipzig. It is remarkable the way they've got through to this semi-final of the Champions League. And for me, good luck to them. I mean, it's not their bad luck that Red Bull have taken over. Finance is a colossal part of any industry, and football is certainly no exception. As opposed to data analysis, I read something quite interesting today, actually, and I'm trying to think which manager it was who said there is so... Oh, it was in cricket, funnily enough. It was David Lloyd, the former English player, who says now that there's so much analysis. So somebody's bowling at 3.6 miles per hour slower in the second 20 overs than he did in the first 20 overs. Oh, my goodness gracious me. Some of these statistics have got way out of hand. So I think... the question about whether it makes natural talent redundant, no, but I think natural talent should be nurtured as it is and not knocked out of people. And I think that applies in all sport. It's nice to see somebody with a different bowling action. It's nice to see a winger who drops the shoulder and goes past people and isn't predictable. It's great to see a golfer who's got an unusual swing. I like unpredictability, and I like individual characteristics to shine through in every single sport. So, good luck to Leipzig. I bear them no grudges whatsoever. But so far as analysis is concerned, I think there is too much now. I really do. I think it still comes down to the fact of who can put the ball in the net. The fact whether he's done it with his right foot, his left foot, with his head, does it really matter? And at what angle and who's applied the cross? There are so many statistics now that it can get a bit wearisome.
Right.
Thank you so much, John, and we shall have a fantastic 65 years more to come in your work career, to be precise. And let's enjoy a fantastic day tomorrow. Thank you so very much for coming on this particular show, and then giving us so many good memories of your playing commentary career as well as your journalism career. I'm sure that the fans have enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Ronak. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show as well. And John, looking forward to see you soon when the ISL will begin.
Thanks very much. It's always my pleasure. I love to talk to my friends in India. I hope it's been enjoyable for everybody listening in. And I personally look forward to my 20th World Cup, which will probably be on Mars. But that would be nice.
Of course. You're just getting younger every year. I say that. I mean that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyway,
thank you so much.
A pleasure to talk with you.
Pleasure all mine.
Okay. Shukriya.
Good night from India.
Thank you. See you all later. Bye for now.